Every time I go to Serbia, I lose a little bit of my language, but gain a deeper understanding of myself. And honestly, if my husband and I hadn't both said yes to a tiny adventure years ago, none of this life we have would even exist. Let's get into the power of adventure. Welcome to Star Potential, a podcast where we explore the meaning of our existence while having a few laughs and sometimes tears through stories from the road of life. I'm your host, Julie Jo Hughes. As a stage performer, my life is quite literally about song and dance. I believe that life here on Earth is a playground for discovery, not a contest to be won. We ask questions together like, how do I evolve my consciousness? And how do you sing a passionate ballad when there's an old guy in the front row with his balls showing? True story. Stick around for these fun conversations. Welcome to Star Potential. I'm your host, Julie Jo. I recently got back from an 11-day trip abroad with my family, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the reflections that I had. Every time we take a trip like this, it's always a chance for me to step away, step out of the hamster wheel of my own life for a little bit, and I come back with a fresh perspective on things I want to do, projects I want to carry out, and I just feel like I have more of a groundedness and a clarity when I'm able to step away and then return. So I feel like both parts are both so valuable. The stepping away, of course, is like a breath of fresh air. It can take a lot of prep in order for that to feel like a payoff. It's always so much work going and then so much work coming back, to be gone for a week or two or even longer sometimes. It does take a lot of planning and moving things around in order to make that happen. But it's so worth it because I always feel like when I step back onto the hamster wheel, so to speak, I just am more efficiently doing so. I'm able to kind of crowd out some of the things that I can see are not serving me. It's like when you're getting all the things ready that are normally operating on a day-to-day basis and you have to put those things on hold, or you've got automatic deliveries set up, you need to make sure you reschedule those, you need to put your mail on hold, like all of these things that are normally happening while we're gone, and even things like watering our plants, making sure our pets are taken care of, things like this. We have to come up with some way for those to still happen when we're not there, when we're not physically present. And even the task of going through and moving all of those things around kind of makes you re-examine, like, what are all these automatic things that I have going? Some of them are not so automatic, right? I'm definitely a fan of automating things as much as possible. And then there are other things that I probably should be automating that I'm still just doing myself because I get some sort of a sense of satisfaction from it or something like that. For instance, you can get self watering plants. And I've definitely been looking at those because I kind of have a black thumb, is what I like to say. But also, it would take away the joy that I have in talking to the plants as I'm watering them. So, not all automation necessarily serves the greater good, I think, but there are definitely places where sometimes we get so automated that we forget why we're even having those things automated. For instance, my dog's um, Chewy auto ship for like 4 months in a row, it came and I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't need more of those treats. But I still had them on auto ship because it reached the free shipping minimum or whatever. I've done this with my Amazon Prime as well. And then I start looking at all the things in my pantry and I'm like, do I need 6 boxes of 24 protein bars? Like, I really don't need a stockpile of protein bars, you know? And so sometimes we're actually able to then get a clearer picture on those automations and say, I actually don't need this to be automated. I think I'll just order a box of protein bars when I need them, you know? And um, it can cut down on our overspending as well. Sometimes it's helpful to have things automated so it's one less thing to take up mental energy. so that we can focus on other things. But when it leads you to a point of excess that you're now disconnected with how much you're spending on pantry items, that's when maybe it makes sense to come off of automation for a while. So I love how it just makes me kind of zoom out and see some things in my life from a different perspective that I normally wouldn't take the time to do necessarily. Another big realization, though, that I had from this trip in particular. Now, as you might know, I am married to a Serbian man, and he moved to the United States when he was in his late 20s, and of course is an American citizen at this point, but so he has dual citizenship. And after I became a mother myself, I realized how much it must mean to my mother in law to see us, to see her son, to see her daughter in law, to see her grandchildren on a regular basis. And so after our son was born, it became very important to me that we visited our family in Serbia at least once a year, every year. So this is probably my 13th or so trip to Serbia. And every time I go, it does offer me another fresh perspective on my life. Now, it also gives me a chance to really practice presence, to really practice energetics, the noticing of what we're communicating in other ways besides just our language. So in Serbia, they speak Serbian, and there, of course, are people that can speak English with you, but when we go there, for instance, the majority of our family there does not speak English. And so, even though I took it upon myself to learn Serbian many years ago, it's not like I'm fluent really. From this past trip, I would estimate I'm about 60% fluent, maybe, at least conversationally. I probably couldn't, I could not read a book in Serbian, but as far as moving about the country and being able to speak with people, I would say I'm more than 50% able to understand and to converse with people, even if my grammar is horrible. But when you're put in a situation like that, where you're just submersed and immersed in a situation where you don't have the full use of your vocabulary to express yourself, you learn to rely on other ways of expressing yourself. So there's a lot of gesturing with my hands, there's a lot of facial expressions that are communicating how I feel and what I want to say because I don't have the words to express that. And so many times we rely so heavily on language, and language is such a wonderful tool, but there are so many other forms of communication that are happening when two people are talking to one another that sometimes, if we rely so heavily on the language, we're ignoring all this other communication that's happening. And when you're in a situation like I often am, when you don't have your language to fall back on, it's like losing one of your senses. All of the other senses that you do have become very keen because now they've had to turn up the volume, right? Because you don't have this one, so now you rely more on those other senses. And it's kind of like that communicating. I don't have the words to express. So instead, I'm going to hope that my eyes are communicating to you that I understand what you're saying and I feel for you of what you're communicating to me. And it makes me a better listener when I come home and I do have full use of the English language because I've just come from 2 weeks practicing really being a good listener, of listening more than I speak. This ultimately serves me when I come back home, when I'm having regular conversations. I'm reminded, listen more than you speak. Because even though sometimes we want to jump to giving someone an answer to something they're talking about or some issue that they're trying to share with you that they're going through, we want to say, I know what you should do. This is what I would do. But instead, a lot of times, what someone's actually looking for is just someone to listen. And when their own thoughts are reflected back at them, or when they're really landing somewhere, that person actually doesn't need your advice, right? They just needed to hear their thoughts out loud. And once those thoughts have been acknowledged, seen, and felt, then they're no longer knocking so loudly. And I'm really able to give that to a lot of people when I'm in Serbia because I don't have the words to reply anyway. So I can do a lot by just receiving what it is they're sharing with me and genuinely taking it in and reflecting back with my heart, with my eyes, and with my energy. And the other person feels that and they get what they really needed to from whatever it is they're sharing with me. It's a really beautiful gift to be able to give to someone, actually. And I often have had feelings when I'm over there of inadequacy, of it makes you feel stupid. It makes you feel less than everyone else. But now, after so many opportunities of this experience of going over there and being the one who can't communicate at the same level as everyone else, I realized that I am actually able to offer something really special that perhaps the rest of them aren't even in a place to be able to offer to each other. And it gets me thinking about how we all do come here with our own set of skills, gifts, divinely inspired ideas, and ultimately intentions. And they're not all meant to be the same. My message is really to play on. The fact that my chosen career has been as a performer is funny, really. I've had to unlearn how to perform in order to be truly authentic. And the best performances come from real authenticity. My best performances come when I truly don't give a damn and I'm just enjoying playing with what the present moment is offering me. Then those performances come out stronger and more impactful and just more energetic than my rehearsed performances. Now, we've talked about this before. This doesn't mean that you're not prepared at all for your performances. There's still that stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But the one with the most life in it, the most energy, is when now you rely on all that training and all the studying and researching that you've done. And now you just shove all that out of the way and let yourself just play in the moment. And I really believe that that's what I'm here on this earth to help inspire in others. And I feel like if you've come back for more than a couple episodes of this podcast, then I think you're my people. I think that either you're meant to be lit up by someone who is telling you to play more, or perhaps that's even your intention as well. And when I speak about this stuff, it's like a tuning fork that resonates something in you that you go, whoa, this is like not something new I'm hearing, but it's like something I'm remembering. I shared this with a friend the other day that said, when you are sharing this silly stuff that you're doing, I feel like it gives me permission to share what I'm working on because it seems like by just being yourself, I'm getting more views than ever before. And I said, yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that it inspired that in you. And I said, can I please tell you about a quote that spoke to me? I think it's been a couple of years ago now. And I want to read the quote so I get it correct. It was a picture that I saw on Instagram. And when I read it, it stopped me in my tracks like a permission slip that I had just been granted, something that I knew, but I had forgotten. So I'm going to read you the quote. I don't even know who said it. It was graffiti. It was a picture of graffiti on a city building. And it says, "The planet doesn't need more successful people. The planet desperately needs more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kinds." You may hear this and go, okay, that's not that big of a deal. I don't know. I'm going to tell you, I have that printed out and I have it on my desk so that I see it every day. It woke something up in me that said, oh, yeah, why have I been straining so hard to be successful? What does that even mean, anyways? The word successful is so subjective, right? And it reminded me, it struck such a deep resonance that, oh, yeah, I came here to play. But for me, play is not a silly thing. It's not a meaningless thing that children do. It's the most important thing that I do because when I play, I am my most authentic self. I am reminded that I am here to evolve and expand. And I only do that when I allow myself to get a little messy, when I allow myself to make a mistake, when I allow myself to learn something new, when I explore, try, experience, laugh, sing, dance, play. When I do those things, I expand. And when I do that, I inspire other people. It gives other people permission to do the same thing. And I don't think we're all here to inspire people to play, but I think a lot of us are here to do exactly that. And I'm one of them. I am here as a guiding light to remind you that you came here to play. You came here to experience, to expand. And if you're so busy trying to get everything right, you miss out on that completely. You kind of miss the point. For a long time, my patterns and conditioning and my false beliefs led me to think that I had to work harder than everyone else, that I was meant for more than an ordinary life, that I was meant for something great, that in order to do that, I have to not let myself have the things that a lot of other people enjoy. This is going to sound ridiculous, but things like 8 hours of sleep, things like watching a TV show or a movie once in a while, things like going for a slow walk outside, things like reading a book. These all seem to me like things you should do when you're retired and you don't have life to live. I know that sounds so silly. It's not that I believe that of retired people, but I think at a subconscious level for a long time that is what I thought. It led me to not exercising regularly. It led me to eating garbage food that would just get me by or not eating at all. It led me to only getting about 5 or 6 hours of sleep at most a night for years and years. And thinking that if I took more than that, that was just lazy. And some of you might still be there. And that's okay. Like, there's no shame in wherever you are. It's just that wherever you are that's life serving you with what you need right now. And so sometimes we have to go through those phases so we can look back and see the contrast of it and go, oh, wow, yeah, my life is actually so much more productive now that I get enough sleep for the most part. And for a long time I didn't let myself sleep because I thought I needed to be working every waking hour that I could, but I couldn't see that not sleeping enough was making me unproductive in those hours. That's a simple example, but a powerful one. So the way that my life has changed now, it doesn't mean that I don't have a desire to go out and achieve great things. It doesn't mean that I have a desire to be lazy and sit around, and it's not like I'm sleeping for 10 hours a night. It doesn't mean that I don't have a desire to really go after and work hard for what I want. But this whole phrase, work hard, like you have to be careful with that too, because I also discovered this underlying belief I had that if the work doesn't feel really hard and tough and difficult, that you don't really deserve the payment from it. And so, even if money was coming to you effortlessly, I would find some way to make it hard. I was, of course, this is on a subconscious or even unconscious level, but I didn't realize that I thought I'm only worthy when I'm working really hard. And so I wouldn't even allow money to come to me easily. Does that make sense? I know that I have no desire for a mundane, mediocre life. And that's how I would describe it. Some people, maybe that's exactly what they want. And this is not in judgment of that because, as I said, I have no desire to figure out the best way to structure a group of people so that they work efficiently. No desire for that. I have no desire to figure out politics, medical things. I could go on, but those things don't interest me. I don't have a skill set or a passion for that, and I'm so thankful that some of us do. That there are people who truly have a desire to figure out how things should be structured in a community to make them work efficiently. That's not my job. My job is to remind those people that are in those positions that if they get out of their head a little bit and they play more, then they can use that specific skill set they have to actually do their job, what they do well, better. That's my job. In my play, in my adventuring, in my exploring, I actually inspire the world to bring a little more dose of that into whatever it is that their divinely inspired skill set is. Is that you too? And so if I recognize that about myself, then I want to be the first one to adventure, to explore. And because we just got back from visiting our family over there too, I mean, it's just sometimes it makes me think like how funny it is. Like this girl from a farm in the Midwest never would have dreamed that she would grow up to marry a guy from Serbia. She didn't even know where that was. And that now I would be taking a yearly trip to go visit my family over there. Isn't it wild? And vice versa. My husband, growing up in Eastern Europe, never would have imagined in his wildest dreams that the woman he would choose to marry and partner through life with was this Midwest farm girl from the US. Isn't it? I just think it's wild sometimes to think that there's no way we could have planned that. That was what we discovered by following the breadcrumbs of life, by adventuring. We both have this adventurous spirit that took us to New York City. The night that we met, he had other plans, but someone invited him to come out to this beer garden with them. And he thought, you know what? Why not? That's not something I would ever have a desire to do on my own, but I'll go with this group of friends. That is the night we met. What made me take a waitressing job at a Czech beer garden in Astoria, New York? It's not like that was my skill set. I was there to be a Broadway actress, but I needed to pay the bills. And I thought it would be fun to, if I'm just going to get some kind of a waitressing job to pay the bills, why don't I expose myself to a different type of culture that I'm used to? Let me work in this European environment where I get to learn about all these foods and beers that I know nothing about. And because we were both just experimenting and adventuring and letting ourselves try things, we met. And we have this beautiful life together. I would love to hear your stories too. What is an example of a time that you did something just in the name of adventure, and looking back now, you can see how it completely altered the course of your life? I would love to hear those stories. And maybe I'll even share one on the next episode. Until then, I'll leave you with this. This week, look for one way you can expand your edges a little bit. Is there a food that you could try? One thing I love to do when I go to restaurants is order something I would never make for myself at home. If I truly don't like it, I can eat something else later, right? But I love jumping at the opportunities that life offers. That's how we expand and grow. And sometimes you find something amazing that really expands your experience of life. When my son was little, we watched a lot of Daniel Tiger, and there's this one line where he says, "You gotta try new food 'cause it might taste good." And now, like 10 years later, we still use that line all the time at our house. When his little sister doesn't want to try something, we still say, "You gotta try new food 'cause it might taste good." And then you can use this as a metaphor for so many other things. Like, take the trip, buy that wild jacket, try the weird cocktail that has egg whites in it that sounds weird to you. There's another quote that I like that says, "Why not go out on a limb? That's where the fruit is." Please share your incredible stories with me. And until next time, Starlight, keep expanding, keep growing, and keep trying new things. See you next week. Thank you for tuning into Star Potential with Julie Jo Hughes. If this episode resonates with you, I invite you to take 2 seconds, scroll down, and click 5 stars on the rating. It's a fast and easy way to help the show gain exposure and momentum. If you're loving the show, I invite you to leave a quick review about what you love. Reviews are like gold to podcasters, and to show my gratitude, you'll be entered to win my monthly giveaway when you send me a screenshot of your review. I also made you a gift. It's a 9-minute simple gratitude meditation with singing to help you practice mindfulness. Just visit me on Instagram at @TheJulieJo or find the link in the show notes. Thank you for your love and support. Until next time, keep shining your light. And that's a wrap.